Well, good morning. It is great to be back again after a week-long off. We are back for the playoffs, the championship, week 17 as usual. Jed, who looks very relaxed on vacation this week, and Jimmy over in Arizona. Welcome, everyone.
Morning.
It's championship week, Jed.
Yeah, championship for you, not for me. Jimmy's in 2 championships. You're the representative for our little podcast saying that we're legit, that we can make it. Not me, man. I didn't make it.
Well, Jed, I'm looking at Jimmy's in the Walter White League, which we share. I mean, before we go in news and notes, he has Jarrett Allen as the quarterback, Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, A.J. Dillon, Mark Andrews, Antonio Brown, Javonte Williams, CeeDee Lamb, Hunter Renfrow, and Cam Akers sitting there on the bench. That's pretty good lineup right there.
Oh yeah, you're wide receiver. I mean, you're gonna have to make some tough choices because you can't play them all. But yeah, no, I think Jimmy's team is a perfect example where really to win the championship this year, not only did you have to draft well, but you had to have good pickups because nobody has their starting lineup that they drafted. And so, Jimmy did a great job picking up. And so, we were just talking about this. Going into the championships, even if you look at the projected scores and you're like, I'm going to get killed by this team, you got to play it out because there's so much. The COVID situation is changing things so much that you just never know. And so roll the dice. I mean, look at Rex Burkhead this past Sunday. He had 2 touchdowns, 150 yards. I mean, that guy probably single-handedly won some leagues. And so you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, if you look at it, I mean, look at Jimmy. Before, a couple of weeks ago, A.J. Brown injured. Antonio Brown suspended. Javonte Williams, timeshare. Hunter Renfrow. He wasn't even in the part of the conversation. And Cam Akers, who knew that he would come back? Suddenly, he's doing pretty well these days. A.J. Dillon was sitting there on the bench, not even playing second string to Aaron Jones. They've done really well.
The other thing I started noticing is, especially towards the end of these leagues, a lot of people aren't paying attention to waiver wires anymore. So you can pick anybody you want. And there are some people, I think, that were, because of COVID and they had to play certain players, they were dropping some really good players. So I was able to pick up, like, for instance, A.J. Brown from Tennessee. Like, they dropped him right when he got onto IR, so I picked him up pretty fast. And I was actually surprised that they dropped him.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys. For me, if I don't make the playoffs, I still set my lineups, but I stop picking up players because I feel like you should leave those players for the guys who are in the playoffs. So, but I agree with you, Jimmy. The competition for the free agents should be a little less now, so you should be able to do better.
Yeah. And at the same time, with that particular league, we had a smaller bench. And so as a result, you constantly had to make moves all the time versus with leagues, which, by the way, let me ask you guys a question. Would you rather have a league with a bigger bench and less moves, or do you like this whole thing with smaller benches and more moves?
No,
I think smaller benches.
Yeah, totally. Because you have to give people a chance who've fallen behind to catch up. And if the benches are too big, the guys that you're picking up aren't good enough to win the week for you. So one of my leagues, the church league I'm in, the old CCUC North League, I'm going to tell them we got to shorten the bench because it's too big and there's not any good quality free agents left to help you win.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in one of our other leagues that Jimmy and I are in with some of our other friends, it is a 12-person league, and it has a huge bench. No one makes any moves at all. I get bored after a while with that league.
Yeah, you got to keep people engaged.
It's a 12-person league with 6 people on the bench.
Oh, yeah, that's way too big.
That's big.
I actually think I like our dynasty league. We have 4 on the bench. I think that's perfect. And it's 4 plus IR. So I think that's great. 4 plus like 1 IR or 2 IR, I think is perfect. But no, I don't like big benches.
Yeah. Hey, now, Jed, I like to brag as well, too. I'm in the championship in my other league that Jimmy and I are in with our friends for the last 15, 20 years. The only problem is I'm going against a guy that has a stud lineup because my James Robinson, who I would love to talk about, is out with the Achilles injury. Yeah. And at the same time, I'm stuck with Terry McLaurin, who hasn't done anything, and Antonio Gibson, who hasn't really done anything.
Yeah, Gibson had a decent outing this last week, but yeah, the whole Washington team, man, what a disappointment. Like that's been probably one of the biggest mistakes was betting on Washington this season. But man, there's pickups. I mean, Tommy, you know it. Like there's a way for you to still win, so you gotta play out. Is that how'd you do in the Japanese league?
I literally just lost because Matthew Stafford got me 6 points.
Oh.
I lost because if Matthew Stafford did whatever he did with 20 points, I would have won. But he was terrible. Oh, and also I didn't play Damian Harris.
Oh, yeah. Damian Harris had a good game.
Yeah.
Yep, I benched Damian Harris.
I played obviously, and I would have done this anytime, but I played Kyler Murray over Joe Burrow in one league, and I would have won if not for that. Burrow had such a great game. He would have blown up.
Yeah. Hey, which, by the way, Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray, and I'm assuming it's in our keeper league. Are you keeping Joe Burrow over Kyler Murray?
I am probably not. I'm probably keeping Kyler Murray.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So you guys can bid on him next year.
I know. I mean, I still think Kyler Murray's the better quarterback, but hopefully during the offseason, he'll have learned because he always started the first 7 games. He was great. After that, he just went, especially the last few games with DeAndre Hopkins gone, he has not done well.
Yeah, I think for me, the big reason, the tiebreaker between the two of them is his rushing yards. So even if he doesn't have a great passing game, he can make up for it with his rushing. So that's kind of my thought. But man, Joe Burrow's looked great. But, again, the beginning of the season, he was like really inconsistent. But the second half, he's been really good. So
did you see how well he did? Joe Mixon did well. All of the receivers, Boyd, Higgins, Chase, they all did well.
Well, I think they were trying to stick it to him because he threw for about 525 yards. It was like top 10 all time. So I think they were clearly trying to stick it to him.
Yeah. And they said that the last time they played Baltimore was running up the score. And so Joe Burrow says, hey, look, if you're going to run up the score, I'm going to get even and run up the score as well, too. Hey, Jim, James Robinson suffers a torn Achilles in week 16. He's out for the season. Look, at the end of the day, the Jacksonville Jaguars are not going to go anywhere. He may not even last for next year with Travis Etienne. So are you even considering him as part of your dynasty if you have him?
Well, most likely not. I think so. Cam Akers had this injury last year, right? And so if you notice, he came back, but he didn't play the entire season. And so for me, I think there are other players that I much rather go for. If you have the space to keep them, like I'm in this one league where somebody's going to keep them because you keep all your players every year, right? So beyond that, I was like, I just don't think that I just don't think he's worth it because most likely he's going to be out for the entire season next year.
Yeah. Hey, Jed, and we're going to talk a little bit about dynasty and keeper leagues as well, too. Does that make you want to keep Etienne then for in dynasty then?
I would consider Etienne, depending on so you guys know my running back situation is set, right? So Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook, even though they were both injured, I mean, that's my starting running back. So because of that, I wouldn't keep Etienne. But if I didn't have a solid starting running back, I think you could roll the dice on Etienne. I mean, he could really, show returns. Although I like your argument, though, Jimmy, with the injury. You're right. That specific injury, maybe it causes concern. But again, it just depends. And I was just going to say, I don't like the keeper leagues where you keep the whole team. I really like our setup where there's a set limit. It's fine if you have more than 5. Ours is 5. If you have more than 5, fine. Less than 5, fine. But I like that because, again, I think you need the free agent pool and the draft pool to be a little bit higher quality.
So I inherited this team, and it's taken me 3 years to revamp this team through trades and pickups. And I think I'll finish this year in 4th place.
Nice.
But it started off 10th place. I was all the way down, and it took me forever to do it.
But it is fun building up a team from scratch. I find it a lot of fun taking a last place team, making trades, looking at young players, all that stuff, and you're constantly looking at rookies. I actually find it fun.
Oh, I think that's what makes it, to me, those kind of keeper leagues, you get to be a GM. I've always said, people always ask me, what's your, dream job? And basically, owning a team and being able to help shape the team, that would be the dream job. And that's basically what you get to do. So that's pretty cool that it worked out.
Jed, speaking of the LA Rams, Daryl Henderson, Cam Akers, hey, look, we were very surprised when it was announced that Cam Akers might potentially play in the playoffs. But now, even this week, he might potentially be playing because Daryl Henderson is now placed on injured reserve with a knee injury. Sonia Michelle will be the lead back. Looks like Daryl Henderson will probably be out for the season. Number one, what do you think of Sonia Michelle? And because he's in my championship game, and as Cam Akers, would you even play him this week at all?
I like Sonia Michelle a lot. I hope you played him last week. I mean, I had picked him up in one of our leagues, and he's produced and he's played very well. And so I would have no hesitation to play him. Cam Akers, I don't know what. So I'm curious what you guys think on this. So I am hearing the stuff saying that he might play. I actually don't think he will, because what I heard was the reason they activated him was really because you in his contract, you have to play like, I think, active 3 games to get the retirement or something. And so they were doing him a solid by activating him, but I didn't sound like to me like he actually would play.
But that was right before they put Daryl Henderson on injured reserve.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I mean, look, Michelle's got what? Last week he had 27 rushing attempts for 131 yards. The week before that, he had 92 yards. This week, he'll be the primary running back. My guess is, unless they have to play Akers, they're going to try to save him for the playoffs. But Michelle's going to be that person that you're going to go after, which sucks for Henderson, because I don't think Henderson's really going to have that much of a role next year, but he might end up being looked at by another team or something like that.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy Garoppolo, UCL sprain in his thumb. He's out possibly for the next couple of weeks, maybe into the play. Actually, you know what? He'll probably be out for the next 6 weeks as well, too, because Jeremy Grant over at the Detroit Pistons has a similar injury. With that, Trey Lance will probably end up starting. What do you think of Deebo Samuel, who has been amazing? He's been nothing short of amazing. What do you think of the prognosis for Deebo Samuel, Jim?
Well, it's funny. Who was it? I was listening to somebody, and they said that you can make the argument that Deebo Samuel right now is one of the top 10 players in the NFL, partly because of the fact that he's able to run, and he's able to receive, right? Similar to what Cordell Patterson's been doing all season. But I feel like Deebo Samuel's at an elevated level. So Shanahan did say that Trey Lance? Trey Lance, yeah. Trey Lance is going to be the starting quarterback. He's been practicing with the practice squad for the last few weeks. My guess is they're going to need Deebo Samuel, right? Because we don't even know who the running back is right now. Is it Jeff Wilson? Is it Elijah Mitchell? I think Samuel's going to have another really good game for them this week.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at scores, 9 catches, 159 yards, 5 rushes, 32 yards. Hey, Jed, if we go in, how high? Like Deebo Samuel has shown that he could be both a running back and a wide receiver. Is he making it into probably not your first round, your second round next year?
Not your first round. Yeah, I would say he's top 10 for wide receivers, and maybe you could argue top 5 because of the rushing. He is basically a better version of Cordell Patterson, and I'm keeping Cordell Patterson in our keeper.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm keeping him. Yeah, so I like the dual threat. I like the flexibility it offers in the positions. So, Deebo is a better version of that. And I would just say for this weekend, I expect Trey Lance and the offense to focus on Deebo. He knows Deebo is his ticket, and he's going to be laser locked in on him. And unless the defense can take him away and double team him, I would expect him to see and they're playing Houston. So San Francisco is playing Houston. So I expect a big game from Deebo. And you might even roll the dice on Trey Lance if you need a quarterback.
Yeah. And Elijah Mitchell should be coming back this week as well, too. Yeah. Jim, Adam Thielen re-aggravated his injury on Sunday. As a result, Justin Jefferson has been nothing short of amazing. You're going to continue to play Osborne as well, too. Other than that, Miles Sanders, broken hand, will not play week 17 against Washington. Thoughts? Because I know a lot of times you're playing against a guy who's playing the Redskins or the Washington football team.
Yeah. So going back to Osborne had 5 receptions, 68 yards, 1 reception. He actually, the last few weeks that he filled in for Adam Thielen, he did actually pretty well as well, too. Oh, here's the other thing, too. And I didn't know if you saw this, Jed. Did you know Dalvin Cook wasn't going to play because of COVID this past week?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I caught that last second. I think it was pretty late in the game, but I did catch that.
And then with Philadelphia, I think I think it's going to be Boston Scott and Jalen Hurts because Jordan Howard is actually out injured as well too, most likely for this week.
Yeah.
So it's going to be Boston Scott leading it.
Jed, speaking of Jalen Hurts, he also has been really great as well too. You have Joe Burrow on your team. If you had to pick for next year, is Jalen Hurts higher because of his running ability, or do you still like Joe Burrow?
Oh no, Joe Burrow definitely. Burrow has a chance to be top 5. If he can continue this, if he can be consistent, if he can continue and build off of this second half, and look at his wide receiver core. His wide receiver core is really top notch. You could argue T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. You could argue that is one of the best combos in the NFL right now. Jalen Hurts, he's doing it with his legs, but it's still too up or down. That team as a whole, I think, is not going to be anywhere near as good as Cincinnati. So for me, it'd be Joe Burrow all day.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, speaking of Joe Burrow, at the beginning of the season, Justin Herbert was seen as a better fantasy quarterback than Joe Burrow. Do you still believe that, or do you think Joe Burrow has exceeded that?
If I had a dynasty league and I had to choose between Joe Burrow and also Justin Herbert, I would choose Burrow.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Herbert, unfortunately, has really regressed. Well, the Chargers as a whole have regressed. That loss last week, what they lost to Houston, right? That was insane. Like, I don't know what happened for that. I didn't get to watch that game, but that's really just a sign of their inconsistency. They can't beat the teams they should beat.
Or more so, Davis Mills seems to be doing decently well.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you're desperate, if you're in your championships or your semifinals and you're desperate, look to those kind of teams, like a Houston, like a Detroit, some team where this practice squad player, this third stringer, who they're just going to give this guy time because they don't have anything to lose, and you might be able to get a lot of points out of that.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by Davis Mills. He's been doing it halfway decent. Yeah. Jen, Mike Evans, the Bucks placed Mike Evans in the COVID-19 list. Man, Antonio Brown, how high? He lost a lot of money in his suspension. He also has a lot of incentive if he meets certain touchdowns, receptions, yards. You're going to see Antonio Brown doing everything he can with Godwin out, as also with Evans out as well too.
Oh yeah, I have. That's why I was holding on to Antonio Brown. I was going to ask you, Jimmy, if you held on to him or if you picked him up, because I picked
him up this past a couple of weeks ago. Someone dropped him.
Because in one of our leagues, I was just holding on to him because I knew there was no way Tampa was going to drop him because the talent is too good. Someone talked about it. There's an article saying Bruce Arians sold his soul to the devil by keeping Antonio Brown. But man, that's the bottom line is talent rules out, and he is a talented individual. I expect a lot of points from him this weekend. He's the only guy left really to catch for them, and so I think Brady's going to be laser focused on it. But
maybe Gronk in the red zone, but Gronk isn't going to be the one that's going to stretch the field. And you're right, the only person that can stretch that field and get those receptions is Brown.
And they're playing the Jets, so you expect them to trounce them.
So, Jim, in your Walter White league, you pretty much have, in some sense, gotten to the championship with pickups. A.J. Brown, Antonio Brown, and A.J. Dillon.
Pretty much. Like, A.J. Brown, like I was slated to lose this week. But seriously, I was surprised when I was looking through the waivers. I saw A.J. Brown was out there, Antonio Brown was out there, DJ Moore was out there, and then this week, hopefully they're not listening, Chase Edmonds is out there as well too. So I picked him up, thinking, you know what? I don't think he's going to have a shared running back committee with James Connors, but if one of them doesn't play, I can see Chase Edmonds doing pretty well. And then I also got Jamar Chase this year as a late round pickup. Pick for the draft, and so I was really happy with my team.
You think Jamar Chase, because T. Higgins has been going nuts the past couple of weeks. Yeah. Do you think Jamar Chase is still number one there, or you think it's Higgins now?
I don't know. I mean, I would say Jamar Chase, right? Because he's still a rookie, but you're right. Look at T. Higgins, 12 of 13, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he scored close to 40 fantasy points this past week. I mean, that was an amazing game. I still think Jamar Chase is the number one wide receiver, but I have noticed with T. Higgins coming on the last few weeks, Jamar Chase has started to pick it up a little bit, which is really good for Joe Burrow.
Hey, it reminds me of the duel of back in the days, Roddy White, Julio Jones. It also reminds me of Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. You have the 1A, 1B. I actually think a lot of times Jamar Chase isn't getting the long runs or the touchdowns. Yeah, 125 yards. He didn't get touchdowns. can he hit a rookie wall? Some of these guys haven't played beyond this into the season. They would have been resting by now during the bowl game.
Yeah, that's a good point for the rookies. But this makes me think that for the keeper leagues, you might want to think about T. Higgins. I was not I think 2-3 weeks ago, I would not have said keep T. Higgins, but I think you might want to consider that now, given how he's done.
Hey, look, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe at the beginning of the season, you probably would have said, I wouldn't have picked Joe Mixon. Look at how well he's been doing.
Yeah, Joe Mixon. Well, I think the big one is Jonathan Taylor. I was looking back. I had to just go back and look. Did you know Jonathan Taylor's average draft position? He was like in some leagues in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds of a lot of leagues. Yeah. And so that's crazy. I mean, he's basically the number 1 running back. And so you got him really late. He probably won most championships for people.
But don't you think a lot of times, like last year, he did struggle toward the second half of the season where he was lumbering along 15 carries, 60 yards at the same time. And then from that point on, Cam Akers was there, J.K. Dobbins was there, all of these guys. And you were trying to figure out which of the rookie class these running backs would do well. And he's done exceptionally well.
Well, the main thing is, and we've talked about this, the main thing is carries. You have to get the carries. Basically, if you look at his stats, when Indianapolis said, we are no longer giving the ball to Marlon Mack, we're going to focus on Jonathan Taylor, and Nyheim Hines will only be, for pass catching situations, then that's when he skyrocketed. When his touches went up to about 20 a game, all of a sudden his stats skyrocket. That's why you guys have to watch the rushing attempts and the pass attempts.
Yeah. Next week, or maybe later on this week, I think one of the segments we should do is to look back on the draft and look back on the season and say, who were some of the players that we missed out on and who were the ones we bet on that didn't work out?
Yeah, like all of the Washington team, any of those guys screwed up.
Like Gibson, McLaren, who's the tight end? Logan Thomas.
Yeah,
right.
Logan
You thought that they were going to head into the championship this year.
Oh, Logan Thomas, that was a huge miss.
Yeah. Antonio Gibson. I traded for Antonio Gibson. I traded away Jonathan Taylor. All right. Hey, speaking of one more thing in terms of LA Rams, Jim, Cooper Kupp. Someone asked me, are you drafting Cooper Kupp as the first wide receiver next year in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think who else you might. I mean, AJ Brown is still out there. Cooper, he would be higher. I don't know if he would be number 1, but we underestimated him this year. Look, he might end up breaking the reception record for the NFL.
For me, that's actually the reason I wouldn't draft him number 1. I'm a big believer. Well, I'm a big believer in, stats. You regress to the mean, right? There's this idea of regression to the mean. So basically you can have outlier years, but you'll always bounce back to your average. And I think Cooper Kupp had a great year, but the odds of him being able to match that are very low. I still think he's top 5. I would draft him in top 5, but no, actually the person I like is Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson has been phenomenal. I know, Jimmy, you got him in the keeper, and I think you can make a nice argument he should be number 1.
Going back to the team where you keep all your players. So the one good thing I did a couple of years ago was I traded all my veterans and I went hard after T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb. Now that year I did not do well, but I was able to use those players in the last couple of years. They've become my primary wide receivers. Now I got to get a couple of good running backs to supplement them.
Yeah, and you probably do it in the draft as well too. Hey, speaking about the Los Angeles Rams, with you have Von Jefferson coming back, you have Odell Beckham coming back, you have Robert Woods coming back, and so a lot of times, as well as Cooper Kupp did, suddenly now you have 4 wide receivers, and Cam Akers and Sonia Michelle, and there's a lot of mouths to feed, and Higbee is right there in the middle too.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, don't you guys think that in the offseason they're going to have to get rid of one of the receivers, right? Robert Woods, maybe Beckham. I mean, Beckham, my guess is they'll keep him. But my guess is they're going to have to try to get rid of him because that's too many people they're trying to take care of.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one argument I would make, though, in response is I do think – you could argue Matt Stafford, they took the league a little bit by surprise. No one knew exactly how he would do, but I also expect Stafford to continue to get better. And so I feel like, Cooper Kupp could continue to ride that wave. The Rams are going to be good for several years now. So I wouldn't mind. having the number one wide receiver from that team.
You know what? I'm rethinking what I said to you about Cooper Kupp, and you're right. This is one of those outliers for Cooper Kupp. He's going to go. I mean, he's still going to be a pretty decent wide receiver, but he is going to go back to normal, right? And you've seen that trend with so many players in the past where they've had a really, really good year, and they had a record-breaking year, and then next year look at Brady, right? The following year, he went back to normal. Look at who is it? DeMarco Murray back when he led Dallas. The following year, he went back to normal.
Well, there's probably an article somewhere on the number of times the number one rated running back or the number one rated wide receiver ended the season as the number one running back or wide receiver. It's a very small number of people who actually did that, because they're always basing it on the previous year's stats. And as we know with the NFL, 50% of teams don't make the playoffs that made the playoffs. So everything flips. And so it's very hard to predict who's really going to be number one.
Did you guys hear the news, Jed? New Orleans Saints tried to lure Drew Brees out of retirement to play the Monday Night Football game because they had no one to play. Ultimately, he decided against it. How good would it have been to see Drew Brees come out? I think he would have gotten injured right away.
Yeah, it would have been fun. I'm glad he said no. I also heard they reached out to Phillip Rivers. They reached out to a lot of people trying to get them come out of retirement. I'm glad he stayed away. I think he would have. Exactly.
I mean, think about it. They needed to win that game in order to stay in the playoff hunt. Now they're out. I mean, look, if I was in that situation where I needed one person to play, you didn't want to bring in that guy, that rookie. You needed somebody who can at least play decently.
Well, his first pass was a pick six. I mean, right away, it just showed. And you guys remember, I remember back in the day, they brought Vinny Testaverde back from retired teams that were desperate. It just shows you the quarterback position in the NFL. It's really a very small number of people who can play that position. And so that's why they get millions, right?
Look, Bernie Kosar was always playing for somebody, and Vinny Testaverde was always playing for somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, with in terms of waivers, Rex Burkhead, 149 total yards, 2 touchdowns. You're in a championship game. Is he somebody you're looking to pick up to play this week against San Francisco?
You know what? I mean, maybe. I mean, there's a couple other running backs I would really look at. Boston Scott, who is most likely going to be the number one running back for Philadelphia. He's the one person I'm looking at. I want to the running back for Jacksonville, who's going to take
Jacksonville.
Dare Akinbawale. He's most likely going to be the number one running back, and he actually did pretty well last week. He had 57 yards rushing. He had another 15 yards receiving. Almost 14 fantasy points. So he's actually somebody I would really look at.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. But the only issue is they're playing New England. And New England, as we know, has lost the last couple games and is really playing for playoff position. So I expect New England to play really strong. So it could be a tough game for Jacksonville. But still, that being the primary number one running back should get you something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, Jen, look at the Detroit Atlanta game. Atlanta wins 20-16. But if you're looking for players, St. Brown has been doing really, really well for Detroit. And also on the Atlanta side, Russell Gage. Is he somebody you're planning to start if you need a wide receiver this week?
Yeah, I think you could look at Gage. I mean, he hasn't been as good as St. Brown has been.
St. Brown's been good.
Yeah, he's been really good. So
Russell Gage went back to normal this past week.
Yeah, exactly. And they're playing Buffalo. I expect Buffalo to continue to do well. Whereas Detroit is playing Seattle. We know Seattle just lost to Jimmy Graham and the Bears, and so I would expect St. Brown. I would continue to play that because he's been lights out.
No, St. Brown is really good. Look at 90 yards, 91 yards, 73 yards, 86 yards, double digits in fantasy since week 13. We all knew going into the into the season he was decent, but he didn't do anything until week 13. And look at what he's done the last few weeks.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, in terms of Broncos against the Raiders, there's no one on the Broncos that you're picking. But in terms of Raiders, besides Hunter Renfrow, Foster Moreau is a tight end. If you're really desperate for a tight end, he's been doing decently well.
this Javonte Williams thing, I don't know about how you guys think. He was like set to be that number one running back. And all of a sudden, they're going back to this shared running back thing with Melvin Gordon. And I don't understand why, right? So if I was the coach, I would do the same thing they did with Jonathan Taylor and just say, I'm just going to keep running this guy, and I just want to see what he does. But for some reason, they keep running Melvin Gordon out there.
Yeah. Hey, and also at the same time, with Drew Lock as a quarterback and with Teddy Bridgewater, there's nothing. They're just not doing anything with those guys.
Yeah.
So are you going to keep Javonte Williams next year for our keeper league?
No. I'll probably hold off until last minute. If they decide to dump Melvin Gordon and cut Melvin Gordon, then I'll go with Javonte Williams.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, is he's such a good talent, right? And he can be the number one running back. But if he's in a shared system, I would be hesitant. But how do you dump a player like that who could potentially be one of your top 3 or 5 running backs in the league?
Well, that's why just like we said with Jonathan Taylor, it's all about attempts. You got to have the attempts.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll even sticking with Denver. Jerry Jeudy, it's really disappointing. I mean, I think this guy still has the talent to be phenomenal, but if you don't have good quarterback play, what can you do? So I think Judy's another guy. I would not be keeping him.
Yeah. I will say if next year, if this offseason, they let go of Vic Fangio, who's the coach, and bring in an offensive-minded coach, I would keep Javonte Williams.
Well, talking about that, the big move this offseason is Russell Wilson. See, like, for example, if Russell Wilson goes to Denver, all of a sudden Jerry Jeudy becomes like top 10. Like, totally. So you gotta watch really closely where he goes, because that guy still has a lot of talent left.
I mean, going back to Jed, don't you think that's a foregone conclusion that Russell Wilson
that he's leaving?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I think he's gone.
Yeah. Did you guys read that article about how Russell Wilson almost came to the Bears? They all agreed on the deal with the Bears, all of that stuff. It had to go to Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll did not want to do it because he felt like there was one more good run, and it just was a disaster. And the article was telling about you just had to rebuild the Seattle Seahawks right now because they just don't have a very good defense. They don't have a great offensive line, so you should have just rebuilt.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I obviously would have loved that, but it'll be interesting to see with Justin Fields. I saw an article arguing that he's still not the guy, that we haven't seen enough. And I agree, it's still up in the air. I still think the Bears have to give him a full season and really stick and see how things go next year. But boy, I would love to see Russell Wilson come in and take things over. That guy is awesome. And he's from Wisconsin, so he'd have a lot of fans here.
But their argument, I'm sitting there listening to a podcast. Stacey King did it with Michael Wilbon, and Wilbon argues if you look at the defense, they're decently well. Akeem Hicks, when he plays, is really, really good. Roquan Smith is one of the best linebackers. Their wide receiver with Mooney, Robinson, decent. Montgomery. The worst thing, offensive line. If you add in the total amount of the offensive line, it's $11 million total. He says, take a look at it. It's the offensive line. If you had a decent offensive line, they would at least make sure you have the running lanes.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll invest. I mean, if they could shore up the offensive line, that'd be great. But like I said, I would watch Russell Wilson. I would watch what's his face out of Houston.
Deshaun
Taylor?
Yeah, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson. Yeah, not Tyrod Taylor. Deshaun Watson. I think those are two big names. Watch where they go. It's going to change stuff.
Well, that's the thing, is there's so much rumors out there about Jalen Hurts being replaced by Deshaun Watson versus Miami that that's one of the reasons I like Jalen Hurts, but I would be hesitant to really go after Jalen Hurts because Deshaun Watson's always out there. Yeah.
And don't you think Aaron Rodgers will probably stay in Green Bay with Devontae Adams?
I really don't care. I don't like the guy. Yeah, exactly. I do not like the guy at all. They better not win this year, man. I'm going to be rooting against them every single time he comes out.
But they're hitting. I mean, think about it, right? AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones. Now you got Lazard, who's doing pretty good. Devontae Adams. I mean, you just wish that they had a tight end, and Aaron Rodgers has something to prove. I mean, as much as I hate the guy,
he looks great.
Yeah,
I was reading how this could be the first year in a long time that the 2 number 1 seeds could be the same from the previous year. Like, that very rarely happens, and it could happen this year.
Mhm.
And you saw the big news coming out of New York Giants, right? They're sticking with Daniel
Judge.
Jones for one more year.
Yeah, I did see that. I mistake.
Yeah. And then the guy from Cleveland. Oh man.
Oh,
Baker Mayfield. Baker
Yeah,
Mayfield.
he's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone.
You know, I'm a Baker Mayfield fan, coming out of Oklahoma. But if in his defense, I will say this: that guy has so many injuries, so many acknowledged injuries, like his shoulder problem, his knee problem. He's wearing a brace, so I think you gotta take that into account. But his play has been horrible. Like he definitely deserves either a demotion or not. Some questions about his ability to continue.
I mean, it's a situation with Mitch Trubisky, right? This guy wants to be paid like Lamar Jackson. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Patrick Mahomes. And the question is, are they going to franchise tag him, or is he going to try to hold out for another larger contract? And there's no way they're going to pay him with that. I mean, if you can make the argument that Baker Mayfield is the reason why Cleveland's not doing well, because they got two great running backs. They got decent wide receivers, right? He just can't get them the ball.
Yeah, agreed. Quarterback, just like the Bears, really. I feel like, a lot of teams, that quarterback position is the key. Once you fix that, everything else falls into place.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick Foles did pretty well this week for them. Look at that. I mean, he did good. He scored 20 points.
How awesome was that game in that you just knew they were. This is the time where we told you, if you were going to start Jimmy Graham, if there was any game to start Jimmy Graham, it was against Seattle. And of course, he scored. And so you cannot tell me these revenge games, how many times do we see it where the guy comes back and has his best game of the year against his former team? I mean, it happens, and it's not an accident. Like, the teams know that and they play for that.
Hey, I was just very surprised. There's so much snow in the stadium. Don't you guys have an indoor stadium where you can close the roof? I mean, I was wondering the whole game.
You know what? I was a little confused because I thought it was in Chicago.
Yeah,
I was
me too.
Oh, it's Chicago. Yeah. And then I was like, wait a second, there's no snow in my house.
And it's an indoor stadium, so why didn't you put the roof on?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something we could talk about later. I am surprised now, watching Nick Foles, why they decided to bring in Andy Dalton this past year. Like, for me, I was like, that was a waste of money that you brought in for Andy Dalton. And most likely, I don't know how many years he's going to play, but I think they're going to have to choose between Dalton or Foles.
Yeah, they should not have carried three quarterbacks, essentially. Every team carries two, with the third string being like, a practice squad guy, basically. And like you said, they should take that money and put it into the offensive line.
Yeah, but the only problem is they were paying Nick Foles starter money. And so who in the world is going to take him off their payroll off his hands? No one's going to take that payroll off their hands.
Well, but with the NFL, right, it's only year to year, so they could pretty much drop him now.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, as we wrap up as well, too, basketball. Speaking basketball, the Bulls have been doing really well. They continue to. Yesterday, they blew out. Who were they playing?
Detroit. No, Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Did you guys see how well Vujacic did yesterday? He had 24 points, 17 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 blocks, and 4 3-pointers.
But Atlanta was missing half their roster.
Yeah,
half their roster was out for COVID. So, I mean, it was great for the Bulls, but let's be honest, that was not the Atlanta team that they really, should be.
I think I could say for all of us, if you're playing basketball, all your team is kind of decimated. You probably have at least 3 or 4 players out with COVID injuries, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I got 4 players on IL right now because of COVID. So, but it's been a fun season. If you're a Bulls fan, man, it's been a fun season. They were looking great. It's exciting. I do hope that they consider making one more move. I still think, to really ascend into the championship discussion, they need to still get one more player. But still, it's been a great season.
He's on the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
Thaddeus Young.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. But it's been amazing to see. I think no one understood how Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, how well they play together. Like, people were concerned that they couldn't share the ball and play off of each other. But man, they've been, and it's really infectious for the rest of the team. I love how unselfish the team is. They're always like the Bulls. Basically, every night it's like we've got 4 guys who can be double figures, and that's a recipe for success.
Well, did you guys see that DeMar DeRozan is one of the top 3 candidates for MVP right now? I don't think he'll win, but I think he's one of the top 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing that the other player that I feel bad for, you see how people are criticizing Russell Westbrook?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone keeps criticizing him. I mean, Carl Anthony Towns says all he does is he's trying to, like increase his stats, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, but I don't know. I feel bad for him because he's actually he's one of the few players on the Lakers who's actually trying hard, but he turns that ball over all the time.
I mean, to me, you cannot be mad at him because you knew what he was coming in, which is he needs the ball. He's going to dominate the ball. And if he doesn't, he's not going to put up the same amount of stats. I think he's trying to be a team player. He's playing hard. But you know what you're going to get out of him. So the Lakers just have too many, they have too many other issues. Really, they decimated their bench. And the reality is in basketball, you still got to have a good supporting cast.
But I do agree with Carl Anthony Towns. He does pad the stats because if you look at Washington, Houston, Oklahoma, all of that, he's always triple-double machine, but they always lose. All of his teams lose all the time.
Well, I would say the Oklahoma team, they were good. Like they definitely, I mean, they got to the championship, right? They really should have kept that core together. And I always appreciated that he was loyal to Oklahoma. Like unlike a lot of other players, he left, right? Like Kevin Durant, James Harden. Yeah. But yeah, I think he's at this point, he can't do it alone. He's not in the category of a LeBron James. And so, they need a little bit of help.
Hey, speaking of Oklahoma, did you see how well James Harden did yesterday? Vintage James Harden, 39 points, 15 assists, 8 rebounds. He did really, really well.
Yeah, you talking about Christmas?
He still looks a little out of shape, but he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, that was good to see because he has been. I was trying to figure out what was wrong with him because in fantasy
he's out of shape. That's what's wrong with him. If you look at him, you're like, whoa, James Harden.
Yeah, you might be right, but he's starting. I mean, that team, and now they're gonna get what's his face back. At least for their away games, right? They're going to get
Kyrie. Yeah,
Kyrie. That team is rounding out. It's going to be pretty solid once it all comes together.
The player that Tommy keeps trying to get for me, Kemba Walker.
He's been going nuts.
Yeah.
44 the other night, right? That guy is insane.
Yeah.
The two players that I would say that you need to watch right now is Kemba Walker, who's doing really well, especially with Derrick Rose out for the next 8 weeks. And quickly, it just is a terrible. And look, Tom Thibodeau has played somebody, and so he's been doing well. Next one, Karis Levert. You got to pay attention to Karis Levert because if they're going to decimate everyone in the Indiana Pacers team, and they end up keeping Karis Levert in the last couple games, 27 points, 24 points, 17 points, 31 points. He's been doing really, really well. Before his injury, he did exceptionally well with Indiana before his injury. And so just take now he's injury prone, so you have to pay attention to that. But man, when he's on, he's on.
I mean, here's my thing. I don't know much about the Pacers, but you think they'd rather build around a Levert versus Sabonis? I think Sabonis is like their number one player.
Yeah, but at the same time, what Sabonis is, there are some people who like him, but at the same time, he's not Indiana does not believe he's a true superstar for them to build around with. Karis Levert is a cheap role player. They're stuck with Brogdon's injury, so you trade your two biggest assets, Sabonis and also Miles Turner.
I'll take Sabonis.
Yeah.
He would be great.
Yeah. And they say people loved Turner because he spaces out really well. How well do you get a good rebounder who could shoot from the three-point line and is the best shot blocker in the NBA next to Rudy Gobert? You could tell I've been watching a lot of Indiana Pacers basketball.
Yeah, I was trying to find. So someone's got him in our league, though, right? He's not sitting in the.
Karis Levert, me.
Yeah. Oh, you have him. Okay.
Yeah, I have Karis Levert.
Yeah. Why do you follow Indiana so much?
Because of Karis Levert and Malcolm Brogdon and Miles Turner. So I have all three of those guys all across all my leagues.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the only reason I pay attention to them. Because Miles Turner, I'm always scouting to see how well he does. Because there are days when he has 6 points, 7 rebounds, but there are days when he has 31 points, 12 rebounds, 4 block shots, and he hits from the three really well.
Yeah, no, that's a nice pickup for you. For me, like it's been D'Angelo Russell has been my best pickup, and then also this guy in San Antonio. I don't know how to pronounce his
Johnson.
name. No, Murray, Dejounte Murray or something.
Oh, yeah, he's actually pretty good, right?
Oh, he's been like This guy has been like top 20, man. He's been amazing. Like his stat line is insane. So he's been carrying a lot of my team.
Yeah.
Hey, but your guy Dinwiddie has not been doing well.
Yeah, I always have one or two guys that I just pick up and drop, and like he's on that list. He's not one of like my keepers. Oh, the other guy is Trent Jr. out of Toronto. He's been playing really well too.
By the way, you know who I really want from you? Trae Young.
Oh yeah, Trey's been.
I really want Trae Young from you.
That was my strategy though. Trae Young and LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball and those two guys basically they carry my assists and they carry my threes. Like Trae Young, like he single-handedly can win threes every week. The guy's
but doesn't he have a lot of turnovers?
Yeah. So I never win turnovers, which is fine. Like I'm willing to give that up. What's been interesting for me this year is my field goal percentage has been pretty good. Like I've been surprised that I've won that more often than not because I kind of thought I was giving up on that. But I think I have enough bigs to like make up for all of their shooting. And LaMelo Ball has been shooting pretty well.
Do any of you guys want Ben Simmons? He's still sitting there for me.
No thanks.
And Klay Thompson's been sitting on my bench. I can't wait till Klay gets
Hey, Klay, that's a great move, man. I had Zion Williamson for a while, but I just gave up on him. I don't think anything's going to happen.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about this. It's been 2 weeks. Why'd you dump Zion? It's a keeper league.
No, but look at it. I mean, the guy has not got his heart into it. I don't know if you guys heard. Not only is he out of shape, but there are reports that he's like missing meetings. He's like skipping practices. I mean, the guy, he's. You know what? And it's hard to be, I don't like to be too judgmental because look, guys, if we were 20 years old and we were making millions, we would not be studying hard at the books and like being really disciplined. We'd be out having a good time. And he needs at least another year to get his head straight. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's because Zion's trying to go to the Knicks. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, you might be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, good talking with you guys. We'll probably see you guys on Friday. Jed, what are you up to today?
Buy that Bitcoin, guys. I was going to say it's doing good. I'm going to there's this magic show in Chicago. I don't know if you guys heard it. It's like Magic Illusions or something. We went to this Van Gogh exhibit in Wisconsin where you like walk around this exhibit and see Van Gogh. That same company did an illusion thing where they've got like Penn and Teller, like it's all on video. It's not in person, but it's the same kind of thing where you walk through. So we bought tickets for this afternoon. So we're going to go to that.
Where is it held at?
It's right on State. It's like on State and forgot the cross street. But it's right in downtown. So
really,
and
okay.
The tickets were cheap, or they were on sale for like they were normally like $50, but we got it for half off, so it was like $25.
Good,
pretty good.
Very good. All right, I'm watching Spider-Man today.
Oh, I finished Matrix Revolutions last night. I liked it.
Really?
I liked it.
Yeah. Jed, Sing 2. Take your kids to watch Sing 2. It was very well done. Very, very well done.
Sing 1 was great. So, yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Yeah. All right. See you.